And we're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another show, another live stream with me, Troy Francis, coming at you live from the wonderful city of London in the UK, where some semblance of freedom has returned, but not very much. And it's all a bit foreboding because God knows what's going to happen. Are we going to get locked down again? Are we not? Who knows? It's all very exciting. But anyway, listen, we're back for another one of these Q&A sessions, which I've been doing over the last few days and I'll be doing this week. And it's all really in the run-up to Charisma and Dating Academy. Although having said that, I think the format is pretty good and I'm really enjoying like the interaction and sort of like getting into the weeds about some of this stuff. So I think it's a valuable thing and I want to keep doing it anyway. But the original purpose of this is because Charisma and Dating Academy, which is my blue chip elite level course, if you like, is released again for its second outing on Friday, which is the 7th of August. And it's open for 5 days from the 7th of August through until the 11th. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, it's actually till Tuesday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So it's actually, I've been saying Monday, but it's actually open until Tuesday night, midnight EST next week. So that gives you 5 days to enroll in the course. But it's only 5 days. And after that, the course will close. The people who've enrolled will come into the live Zoom webinars. And then the other people will have to wait. As and when it gets released again, which will probably be later in the year, the price will go up. So getting in now, the course is going to be the cheapest that it will be, if you like. So now is a really good time to get in. There's also loads of bonuses. You get my infields compilation, which is worth £150 in itself. You also get 3 of my books. You get another course I've done called the Renegade Playbook. Loads and loads of stuff. And the course itself is over 10 hours long. But on top of that, you also get 20 hours and more of actual group Zoom webinar training sessions. And that's where some of the real value comes through, particularly because we'll be bringing guests in. I mean, last time we had Myron Gaines. We had John Modern Life Dating. I think Ryan Stone popped in. So look, we'll be getting some more guests of that kind coming into the webinars following the launch of the course. Okay, so let us now go into talking through some of your questions. And please, any questions about dating, game, charisma, the renegade lifestyle, etc., etc., please do put them into the chat and we'll start to work through them in this broadcast. But I thought to kick off, I'd just go and have a look at some of the ones that we didn't get to cover yesterday, because quite a few came through yesterday and we weren't able to get through to all of them. So the last question that was posted yesterday that we didn't have time to get to is from somebody called Spider Tech 500. And he says, is there a universal attractive template, or must your game specialize, in your experience, specialize meaning attracting horse girls, the same as tomboys, the same as trad girls, etc.? Okay, so I think what he's saying here is, should you change up your game depending on the target audience? That is to say, depending on the type of girl that you are looking to attract. And I would say the answer is somewhere in the middle, because I think it would be foolish to say just be robotic and never change and just do exactly the same thing regardless of who's standing in front of you, because clearly that's not going to work very well, because people are different, girls are different. You meet different kinds of women in different kinds of situations, and they respond to different things. They respond to different types of humor, different kinds of, stimuli in the like flirtation, like what used to be called negs, teasing, banter, all this kind of thing. That of course there are differences, and the mark of an experienced social animal is that he is able to read the person he's interacting with and tailor what he's saying and what he's doing to them. So in that sense, yes, absolutely. You need to be forever assessing the people that you have in front of you and tailoring what you do and what you say for them. At the same time, though, in the end, attraction is attraction, and you don't have to. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Okay, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time you go in. I mean, like I've said before in these broadcasts, broadly speaking, when I've been out in the field and I've been doing my thing, and this is certainly how I teach clients. My routines are very, very similar each time. You know, I like to go direct. So I will go in and say something like, "Oh, I just noticed you. You look really nice. You look really pretty. You look really cute. I had to come and talk to you. My name's Troy. What's your name?" And then start the conversation like that. You know, pretty. And you can use that same formula in almost any different situation with almost any different kind of woman. You can use that in the daytime, you can use that in the nighttime, in a club or in a bar or whatever. Okay, so you know, because the basic structure is always going to be broadly the same. That is to say, you're going to meet her, you're going to introduce yourself, you're going to have a bit of conversation, a bit of banter, and then you're going to push it towards the close. Now, the close may be that you get a phone number, or it might be that you take her an instant date, or it might be something more than that, depending on the circumstances. So, but that structure is always kind of going to remain the same, whether she's a princess, whether she is, you know, from the back streets of the East End of London, whether she is, you know, whoever she is, you're going to have to follow broadly that same trajectory. So I wouldn't overthink it, but at the same time, do be sensitive to your audience. I mean, if you're dealing with a very, very high class girl who's in a beautiful like Chanel suit or something, then perhaps, although this is debatable actually, but perhaps your more bawdy sort of approach is not going to go down very well. Or at least maybe not in public. I mean, she probably loves it in private, but you know what I mean? Like, so be sensitive to the situation, try to read the person you're interacting with and act accordingly. Go on your gut. You know, what's your gut telling you about this person? What do you think is going to play well with them? But don't change up the fundamental thing too much, because the structure is the structure. You know, it's always going to be the same, or more or less the same. Right, let's see if there was anything else from yesterday. In the meantime, any questions you've got, anything you want, any topics you want to cover, put them into the chat and we will get to them. What was the name of the academic you cite regarding charisma? I remember you discussing his work. It's John Antonakis of the University of Lausanne. I'll put it in the chat actually, so you can. Professor John Antonakis, you can look him up. He's got some. He's got a TED. Yeah, he's got a TED talk, I think. So that's pretty good. A pretty good place to start. And yeah, there's some other stuff on there as well, some videos and some interviews and things like that. So he's really worth looking at. And also as well, the book, The Charisma Myth by, and I keep forgetting her name recently, but her surname is Caban or Caban. That's a really, really good book as well. That's it. But so those are a great place to start. But John Antonakis of the University of Lausanne, one of the leading lights in terms of this whole field of charisma, etc., etc. That might be it actually, because I've done the one about creative routines. Oh, actually, hang on a second. Sorry, we're not even. Yeah, quite a lot of this stuff we covered. I think we were talking about Ukraine, about the differences between Ukraine and the UK. Somebody asked about the thickness of a necktie. Conversation game, why is it downplayed? And I said it shouldn't be, and we should be. And I will create some content about that. Yeah, okay, right. I think we covered most of the stuff from yesterday. So let's have a look at today. Mo C says, are you still coming to the Rule Zero event in Vegas? Okay, well, listen, we've been doing a lot of work around Rule Zero behind the scenes. And I would say look out for the show on Saturday, which is going to be on Rich Cooper's channel, because we're going to be talking about what's going to happen with the event going forward, because of obviously, there's been a lot of changes and everything else. So we're still working on it at the moment. So watch this space, watch Rule Zero on Saturday, because there's likely to be an announcement about it. So we will come to that. It's very much front of mind. I mean, unfortunately, as we all know, the whole world has kind of been screwed over as a result of COVID and the subsequent measures that have been taken. So it just makes everything very, very difficult. Unfortunately, because Rule Zero Live is a really exciting thing, and we're all massively looking forward to it. And it's a shame, but tune into Rule Zero on Rich Cooper's channel on Saturday, and more will be revealed. Okay. Right, Tom Bombadil says, hi, Tom. Here, Troy, expound on your tweet on desiring more shallow experiences as you get older. Is that just a casual hookup or something else? Right, okay. Well, this is an interesting one to start with, because Tom is a godly man. He's a man of, not of the cloth, but he's a man of the church. He's a God-fearing, devout gentleman. And the tweet that he's referring to was one that I did yesterday. And it was, I'll see if I can find the exact wording actually, but it was basically, the bottom line is, the TLDR is, it was kind of a joke, but not entirely. Let me just see if I can find the tweet that he's referring to. Sorry about this. I'm not going to be able to find it now. Oh, here we go. Right. So I tweeted, as a man gets older, he finds himself yearning for increasingly shallow experiences. As a man grows older, he finds himself yearning for increasingly shallow experiences. And actually, it's had a bit of traction. I mean, it's had 109 likes. It's had about 18 retweets. So it picks up a little bit of traction. I might retweet it actually, just to bump it up a bit. It was kind of a joke, to be honest, Tom. And some of the things that I say on Twitter are a little bit tongue in cheek, mainly because a lot of the people on Twitter are very, there's a lot of very traditionalist kind of guys on Twitter who are very, very sort of holier than thou. They're quite sort of annoying, but they are sort of quite blinkered in their views, and they say a lot of stuff which, sort of sounds good, but it often feels to me as if it's virtue signaling a little bit. Like they'll say things like, "Oh, well, a man should do this, or a man should do that. A man should settle down and be responsible and do something more meaningful with his life than just be a player, I suppose, or just be a digital nomad, or just be somebody who is somebody who seeks pleasure, or who values pleasure highly." And there's a sort of I was going to say Protestant kind of work ethic aspect to this, but I suppose I think a lot of these guys are Catholic. So it's a kind of religious, conservative with a small c view of the world. And it's not one that I necessarily share, because I think a lot of these things are sort of unexamined. Like, for example, they will always say, you should do something more meaningful. Not me, just that, a guy who presents himself as being like a player, or being somebody who dates a lot, or is promiscuous, or doesn't want to settle down, or that, they will say, well, they will try to shame him, and they will say, well, you should do something more serious. You should do something more meaningful with your life. But they haven't examined the premise. They've just said it because it's the kind of thing that gets said a lot in society. But when you drill down into it, what actually makes a meaningful life? You know, why is a life where you work a job that you don't like very much to bring up a large family that's very expensive, um, with a wife that maybe you've lost the feelings for and she's lost the feelings for you. You know, why is that more meaningful than somebody who just thinks, well, sod it, I'm just going to go and travel and have a good time? I'm not saying that you should do one or the other. I'm just saying that meaning is a subjective value that we ascribe to things, and we do it really because of what society tells us to do, but we don't examine the biases beneath it. Okay, and these people just never examine their biases. They're just like, yeah, you know, get the white picket fence, get the dog, go to live on the farm, have 16 kids. That is the only meaningful life. Everything else is degenerate and et cetera, et cetera. And I just fundamentally disagree with that, because I'm a libertarian with a small L. You know, I think people should be kind of do what they want to do. I don't believe that there is any one objective meaning to life, and by the same token, I don't believe that there is an overarching purpose for life either. You know, people will say, well, the purpose of human life is to reproduce, and I mean, in a biological sense, yes, but I mean, this is a bigger philosophical area, isn't it? But in a biological sense, yes, but you've reproduced, and then at the end of your 70 years and 10, you fall down dead and you lose all consciousness. The fact that you've reproduced isn't going to help you very much. And anyway, your genes will get weeded out of civilization in the next couple of generations anyway. So how meaningful in the big scheme of things was the fact that you did those conventional things because other people told you should do them? So I was kind of just winding those people up, really, because, of course, the virtue signaling, the classic virtue signaling thing that you would say is, as you get older, you mature, you search for more meaningful experiences, etc., etc., etc. And I was sort of parodying that, really, but twisting it around the other way. So that was kind of the meaning of that. Don't take everything I say on Twitter too seriously. A lot of the time it's just to wind those guys up because they kind of annoy me. And I'm being deliberately provocative. But there's a grain of truth in these things. You know, there's a grain of truth in these things. And I mean, another way of looking at it is that you get a lot of guys who are older who have had very, very bad relationships, who've been through divorce, who've had, you know, who've lost their kids, who've had to pay huge, you know, backbreaking alimony repayments and all of this. And rather than looking for what they used to regard as meaningful back when they were young, now they realize the value of perhaps more shallow relationships, more shallow experiences, because meaning, doing what society told you to do, turned out to be not quite all it was cracked up to be. And so, you know, the older guy who's a bit older and a bit wiser might say, well, actually, listen, I just kind of want to have a good time now, because I recognize that when I sought the things that I thought were going to be meaningful, they actually ended up stabbing me in the back. So that's kind of what I was thinking when I put that. Okay, so Michael comes back again and says, just finished the narcissism chapter in the Dark Tetrad, which I believe he's talking about my book, which is wonderfully titled How to Be an Arsehole. You can get it on Amazon. It's also available in the Renegade Dating Blueprint collection, the link for which is below. And I talk about the dark triad, that is to say, Machiavellianism, narcissism, psychopathy, and sadism, and how those bad boy behaviors, those bad boy traits, feed into a guy who is flawed, certainly, but can ironically be more attractive and be more successful. And so, you know, what can we learn from these traits? And he says, it's crazy how programmed us males are by school teachers, our family, and other influencers to act so mannered and contempt. I'm not sure what you mean by contempt, but yeah, I mean, society teaches us to act, to be good. Society teaches us to act in a very, you know, nice, correct way, because it wants us to fit into the little boxes that it's constructed for us. You know, it's pretty, it's not this isn't a radical thought. This is pretty obvious. You know, society wants you to follow the plan. Society wants you to go along with the program because, you know, it's easier for big corporations to sell to guys who, you know, who I mean, for a start, you know, you want guys in their 9 to 5 jobs with their regular wage packets so they can pay the mortgage, so the banks can make money, so that consumer goods can be sold to them. You know, you want guys in stable families that they've got to support, so they're buying more stuff. As we know, most of the consumer decisions are made by females rather than by males, so it makes sense from a big business point of view that more guys are married or in relationships because they will then be driven to purchase more goods and services and foodstuffs and things. So yeah, I mean, clearly society, in a meta sense, has a vested interest in us following along with the rules. And if you are sort of a dark tetrad, renegade, Machiavellian playboy, then that doesn't. And this is where the traditionalists are right. That doesn't really contribute very much to the good of society overall. You know, the person who contributes to the good of society is the guy who is the plow horse, is the guy who follows all the rules, does everything right, um, you know, is very, very careful financially, pays everything he's meant to pay, dots the I's and crosses the T's. You know, that dude is the dude who helps society to continue running. Okay. And, you know, other guys who choose a more renegade path are kind of anti that in a way. But as I've said before, the truth of the matter, then guys will say, well, yeah, so, you know, what you're espousing, that doesn't make sense because it would cause the downfall of society and blah, blah, blah. But of course, the truth of the matter is that the vast majority of people just follow all the rules. So anything that I say on this small channel and anything that, you know, anybody else that, you know, says similar things to me says is not going to make any difference on a large societal scale. So, you know, most people are not programmed to take the renegade path. Most people are by nature conformists, and we're all conformists to some degree or other. And I mean, I am. I'm not exonerating myself from this, but you know, there are certainly ways that you can push back on that conformity to some extent, to just to get more of what you want out of life, which I believe is important. All right. So Adam says, I'm seeing a hot girl. Well, congratulations. And I picked up multiple red flags early on. So I just thought I'd like to bang for a while on bell, but I'm finding myself liking her more and more. Any advice on not getting attached? I mean, I'm the worst person to ask about this because I have frequently fallen into that same trap, and it's very, very easy to do. And the answer, the correct answer, is what Tom Torero says, which is you have to follow the lover rules, not the provider rules. And that means being very, very careful in the early stages of the relationship, or when you guys are hooking up or whatever, that you don't give the indications that you are potential boyfriend material. And that is to say, you know, she comes over, you guys hook up, and then she gets a taxi home again, or you go to her place, you guys hook up, and then you get a taxi and you leave. You don't stay over. You know, you don't see her more than once a week. You're not texting every day. You're not leaving things in each other's houses. You're not sort of getting into deep and meaningful conversations about life, the universe, and everything. You are not doing date-like things. I mean, maybe you can go for a drink or a couple of drinks, but you're not, you know, going to the zoo together. You're not cuddling up on the sofa and watching Netflix. You're not going for cream teas together in the afternoon in a cafe. Cream teas, by the way, are an English invention, which it's a thing called a scone, which is a little cake thing, and then some jam, and then some cream on top of that. Very nice. Yeah, you know, you're not doing any of that boy-friendly stuff, and that keeps it in the friends with benefits phase for a period of time. If you start to allow the boyfriend behaviors to creep in, then guess what? By default, unless she decides that she doesn't like you for some reason, but if she's kind of into you, and remember, girls get feels as well, so you're getting the feels, she's getting the feels at the same time. Guess what? You have become her de facto boyfriend. It doesn't matter that you haven't sat down and had the conversation. You've just slid into the role, and then you get trapped, because then you realize, oh, damn, I've got feelings for her, she's got feelings for me. Getting out of this is not going to be as easy as I thought, and it's tricky. It really is tricky. If you're in that situation, you need to think carefully about it, and then you need to plan an escape route. And I mean, there's no particularly easy way of doing it, but you just have to shoot the puppy, as Tom says, which is to say, you have to do it quickly, you have to do it cleanly, and then you have to get away. Ideally, maybe physically, go and travel, go somewhere else for a bit. And you have to go into no contact, and that's just the way it is, delete and block, unfortunately, because doing anything other than that is going to mean that the feelings are going to come up, and you are going to be, one of you or the other is going to be compelled to contact the other, and then you get dragged back into the cycle again. It's very tough. And it's all about oxytocin, right? Like the cuddle drug, the affection drug that you get when you spend a lot of time with a girlfriend or a female partner. It's natural, but that is a very, very strong drug. And guys really crave affection. It's been said that guys actually crave affection more than they crave sex. And that is, I believe there's some truth in that. I think that, yes, of course, guys want to have sex, as women want to have sex as well. And that drives them a lot of the time. But once you get beyond that, it's something more. And it's that lovely affection. It's that cuddling on the sofa. It's that holding hands. It's that, it's that having someone there. Very hard to break out of that once you've got into that cycle. So the trick is to try to nip it in the bud before it gets to that stage. Not always easy, but that's just what you have to do. You have to be strict with yourself. And if you find that you've fallen into it and you feel that you need to remove yourself, then you've got to be strict about that as well. You've just got to take the action. It's not going to be easy, particularly, but you've just got to work through it, But good luck with that. I hope you've managed to resolve that in some way. Sorry about my internet again, by the way. I think we're flashing in and out a little bit. Somebody before I go to that. So Dabby, just I think replying to what we've just talked about, says, I mean, if you're liking her, why do you want to leave? Because of the red flags. The fact that you like her shows the red flags aren't integrated in you. I'd worry about that before. I think what he means here is to say that the issue here is if there are red flags and they haven't convinced you to get away, then that is perhaps a bad thing. That's something that you might want to work on, because, and this is where logic comes into the equation, right? Because men are very emotional creatures as much as women are, I think, in many cases. And, men will work on emotion, not logic. And logic would dictate, if you're in a situation with somebody and they've displayed red flags, he doesn't say what the red flags are, right? So it might be really serious. They might be quite minor. We don't know. But let's say they're kind of middling on the scale, but you're getting these red flags. There are things here that there are warning signals here. Then logically, the logical thing to do is to say, okay, listen, I am on balance better off cutting my losses here, so I should move on. But he's not doing that because he is being driven by emotion, right? So sometimes you have to allow a slither of ice into your heart, and you have to say, right, I'm going to now act on logic rather than emotion. It's the old thing. I'm going to follow my head, not my heart. Because I recognize that this situation is bad for me. And if there are red flags, I mean, again, maybe you can let us know in the chat what some of the red flags are, but they're not. People don't really change, like red flags, things like this. They don't really get any better. They tend to get worse as a relationship continues. So, yeah, I mean, in the end, sometimes we have to favor logic. Well, actually, arguably, as men, we should always favor logic over emotion. But certainly in instances like this, sometimes you just have to look at it and say, look, this is tough, but logically, this is the right thing to do, and so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to extricate myself from this situation. Matt W. Troy, still the best hair in the manosphere 2020. COVID be damned. Yes, thank you very much, sir. COVID, fortunately, has not affected my hair that much, although it was quite difficult because for a long time, and I'm sure this is the case probably where you are, but for a long time, the hairdressers, the barbers were closed. Couldn't get a haircut. And although my hair is quite short, I hadn't got it cut for about 3 or 4 weeks before the lockdown, and so I was starting from a point where it was, ideally I would have liked to have got a cut, and so then it grew out, and it wasn't disastrous, but I was trying to do stuff myself with I had this thinning combs and things, and yeah, so it's just one of those things, because I like to try to keep it quite sharp. I like to get it done fairly frequently, so it was a little bit tricky. There were black market people doing secret barbering that you could get to come around your house, so that was all quite interesting. And then as soon as they lifted the ban, I went back to my normal place and they did it, and then I've got it done again since, and I think we're getting back into kind of where I wanted it to be now, so it's all good. So COVID so far, hair wise anyway, has been not too impactful, but let's see how things go as we go into fall and into the winter. Mo says, isn't it super late in London? It's 10:30. It's 22:38 in London. So it's not horrendous. I am a little bit tired because I did this last night as well, quite late. And I've had a lot on actually the last few days because I'm launching Charisma and Dating Academy on Friday, 7th of August. As I said at the beginning, it's open for 5 days. So that's till Tuesday the 11th that you can enroll in the Q3 iteration of Charisma and Dating Academy. And I've just had a lot of work to do in preparation for that, putting finishing touches onto things, sorting out the marketing, etc., etc. So it's been a pretty busy period. So I am pretty tired, but it's not that late. It's not disastrously late. I think Troy is a big boy. Indeed, that's what she said. Then Mo says, how can you purge the relationship thrust? What kind of thrust did you have in mind? I'm guessing what you mean is how do you curb the desire to fall into a relationship or something along those lines. And I mean, this really, the classic answer from a red pill perspective, if you like, is to say spin plates. Because if you're spinning plates, you're seeing multiple people, you're dating around, and girls do this as well. It's kind of the way things go down these days in our modern degenerate society. You theoretically you spin plates, and so you don't get too attached to one particular person, and then you remain with your options open, sort of thing. But in practice, that's not always how it goes, because in practice, what tends to happen is you will say that you're dating 2 girls or 3 girls. Inevitably, there's going to be one that you like more than the others. And what's probably going to happen, because it usually happens, is that in order to keep her around, you're going to start to compromise more for her, probably to the detriment of the other girls. Because say girl 2 is saying to you, oh, let's meet up on Saturday, it'll be really good, there's this party and blah, blah, blah. But then girl 1, your favorite girl, is saying, oh, come around to my place on Saturday and we'll watch TV or whatever. Probably you're going to go with girl 1 because you like her more. And so that means perhaps girl two will get miffed and fall off. And slowly your options close down until you're kind of you're stuck with the main one effectively. But the other thing I would say about this is that but having said that, again, it's firstly being strict with yourself. It doesn't inevitably have to go that way. You can just be very strict and very sort of on point about this, and just be very careful that you don't allow that to happen, and just keep changing things up a lot is good. People that travel a lot, they have less of a problem with this because they're always moving on. So they're moving to a different city every couple of months. This is not a big deal because they just don't they're just not there long enough for it to become a problem. But on the other side of the coin, what I would say is, again, this comes down to what you want. I mean, I'm not going to say on here that everybody watching this or everybody who watches the replay should forgo all intimate relationships. I'm not. I mean, what's good for one person is not going to be good for another person. And it might be you're watching this and you're like, yeah, I want to find, I want to find someone. I want to get married. I do want to get married because I want to have kids, and blah blah blah. And if that's the case, then you need to act accordingly. If that was the case, then obviously it doesn't make sense just to cut everything off. Because if you find somebody and you think this is somebody I can see this kind of working with, and you've done the vetting, you've done the red flag, check the red flags and all the rest of it, then you want to not listen to what I'm saying. You want to go and listen to Ryan Stone or somebody who talks more about LTRs, and take their advice, about how to make this work in an equitable way. So it kind of depends on what you want. But if you're somebody who says, no, look, I just want to play the field, I don't want to get into these relationship situations, then you've got to be strict with yourself. You've got to use logic over emotion. Don't fall into the boyfriend trap, etc., etc., etc. Michael says, how do you deal with being with yourself, loneliness? Well, I mean, I generally speaking, I mean, I've got a girl I'm seeing, but generally speaking, I mean, I've usually always been dating somebody or other, even if it hasn't been particularly serious. So usually there's something going on in the background. Okay, so that's one thing. Secondly, I'm lucky in the sense that I've got a very good support network. I've got a good group of friends, based in London, but also I've got a good group of friends in London and also in some, Berlin. I spend time there. I've got friends in Berlin as well and other places. So there's usually somebody that I can meet up with, or somebody who's on the other end of the phone, that I can have a chat with. So that really helps. I've got friends as well who work in this business who travel around, and I can meet up with them and things like that. So I think male friends are very important, and family as well to some extent. I was down seeing family on yesterday because it was my dad's birthday, and seeing family is good. Seeing family is important. Speaking to family, I mean, I don't do it as much as I should, but that's an important thing as well. I think you need to keep these fundamentals. So working on having friends and things like that, really, really important. But sometimes if you're living the life, then sometimes it can get lonely, and it's one of those things that I have often been guilty of trying to avoid uncomfortable feelings, like feeling lonely or feeling sad or feeling angry, whatever it is. But in the end, there is value in being able to withstand those things. There's value in going through those things and coming out the other side. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Okay, well, loneliness, they say loneliness kills, actually, and I think it kind of does in some instances. But not having a girlfriend for a period of time is not going to kill you. And so there is value, as I say, in going through those periods where you do feel a bit of loneliness, but you're working on yourself, you're working on your mission, you're working on your projects, etc., etc. And that's the other thing as well, keeping busy. I mean, man, Like if you keep busy, to be honest, you can go a really long time and not have a great deal of contact with people, and you'll be fine. You know, I mean, for me as well, I don't need a lot of contacts because I'm kind of introverted anyway. I mean, like I like to go out. I found the lockdown difficult because I like to be able to go out and see other people. You know, like I like to go and sit in a cafe and have people around me, or I like to walk down the street and see people walking around. Doesn't mean I want to hang out with them. Doesn't mean I want to spend hours talking to them or anything like that. It's just nice to know that they're around. But I mean, in the main, I'm kind of quite happy a lot of the time with my own, with my own company. So that's sort of like how I deal with it. Everyone's different, though. Everyone's got different. Everyone's got different takes on this. Random Donut, who was on yesterday as well. Thanks for tuning in again, man. Says Troy, exercises to do in quarantine for better sex. Thank you. It's not really. It's not really. It's not my area of expertise, really, to be honest. I mean, I'm not saying I'm rubbish. I mean, if there's any girls that I've dated in the chat, then maybe you can give us your feedback. Or actually, please don't do that. But look, I'm not a specialist in sort of sex, and this is what you should do for sex, and blah blah blah. A guy who is, though, is Sterling Cooper, who I interviewed on this channel a little while back. If you saw that video, if you didn't, look it up. The guy's called Sterling, as in Stirling, Cooper. He's a porn star. He's a pornographic actor based in Los Angeles. Very successful in the business. Worked with a lot of the big female porn stars. Done loads of films, etc., etc. And he is a bit more of a specialist in terms of the sex stuff for obvious reasons. And he's actually written a book, which I should put the link actually, because you can get it. And I've got an affiliate link for it. It's called How I Grew My Penis and Other Secrets of the Porn Industry. And he talks about sexual techniques and things in that. So I would say, look at the interview I did with Sterling Cooper, because we touched on it in that. Have a look at his book if you're interested. There's a link to the book in the description on that video. And I was just chatting to him today, actually. So I may well bring him back on, and we might talk a bit more specifically about sex techniques. So something to look out for. But in terms of exercises, I'm not really sure. I mean, maybe some squats or something like that. I mean, the things that I do, I mean, I've been doing a lot of cardio during lockdown, and I think having stamina is important. But the other thing that I think is important as well is more like high intensity training, because if you think about high intensity training, really gets your heart rate up, and it's really sort of like, you need it's really tough. You need to train yourself in it. So I would say some high intensity training, even if it's just running and then stopping and starting, that kind of thing, just really getting the heart rate going is going to be valuable in terms of your stamina and your sort of like your ability to perform. Those are my thoughts anyway. I don't know if anyone's got anything they want to put in the chat. Tom says, a few years ago when I was more blue pill, I used to give myself affirmations. I'm a beast. And then a different voice I would call the Holy Spirit. I would add, of burden. That's a good one. I don't know how valuable that would be from a self-improvement point of view, but that's quite funny. That's then talking about this lady's red flags. So James, thanks for tuning in again. I know you were on yesterday. Says, going off of this, do you think that red pill promotes being too unemotional, logical in relationships, to the point that you can't really have an intimate and non-transactional relationship with women? Well, no, because not really, because I have a relationship that is, I have a relationship with somebody that I would say is intimate and non-transactional. I mean, all relationships are transactional in some ways, but I don't think it turns you into a sort of a robot I don't think it really turns you into somebody, you can't feel, that you are just completely shut off from emotions, because I think the emotions are too hardwired in, and so too is societal conditioning. The Disney stuff is really hardwired in, and even, Tom Torero always says the truth of the matter is a lot of guys who are, uh, who create content about dating and game, or guys that create content even about red pill topics, most of them have girlfriends or long-term relationships. I mean, if you look at the guys on Rule Zero, um, I think all of us actually have girlfriends. I mean, Rollo Tomasi is married; he has been for 23 years. Rich Cooper has a partner that he is seeing. Not, I don't think she lives with him, but they are together. Ryan Stone lives with his girl, and even John Modern Life Dating, who's the most degenerate, along with me on the panel. I mean, he does what he does. He's obviously out there in the field and everything, but he does have a regular girl as well. So I don't think it makes you. I don't think it makes you unemotional, but I think it makes you more aware of the mechanics. And whether that's a good or a bad thing, I would say on balance it's a good thing, because I always feel like it's important to look at reality in the face and to accept life on life's terms. And I think really Red Pill is just a new fancy way of talking about fundamental truths about human relationships that have been known actually for centuries, for a very long time. So I think you've got to be realistic, but I don't think it turns you into an automaton. I don't think it turns most people into an automaton. I mean, it might. I mean, yes. I mean, if you get too much into this way of thinking, then it could potentially become unhealthy. But I think for most people, it doesn't really. I think, and even the guys who put up a very hard, cold alpha front. I mean, like I say, most of them have got girlfriends and partners and things like that, and it's. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. I think the issue that most of us have is we're too far on the other side. We're too emotional. We aren't logical enough. And so the good thing about this stuff is that it teaches you to move more into the other direction, which is probably going to be better for you in the longer term. Davy is just confirming about what we were talking about before. The guy with the woman with red flags that he's into. The red flags, he shouldn't like her. That's the point. If she has say she has a notch count of 200, that should repel you. Yeah, fine. So that clarifies the point. All right. Saf got cheated on 2 years ago and got red pills. But I haven't been able to approach a girl since because I keep making the excuse that I get to my life sorted. What's your advice on that? Well, sorry to hear that you got cheated on. It's a tough lesson. It happens to a lot of us. It's happened to me back in a long time ago, back in the day. It's part of life. The advice is that you need to do everything. You need to, yes, get your life sorted, but you also need to be working on game, because as we've said many times, being successful in the classic areas, which are muscles, money, business, these things, it's great, but that's not in itself going to bring you success in dating. Success in dating comes about by understanding the dating arena and knowing how to navigate modern relationships. And the best way to do that is to get out there and take action. So, don't give yourself that excuse, basically. You need to just, you need to set a target. Say, right, I'm going to talk to 5 new girls this week. I'm going to talk to 10 new girls this week, whatever it is, one a day, and just start doing approaches and start making mistakes and see what happens. And, then come back with questions, with issues, with problems, get more feedback from me or from the guys in the chat or from, whoever whatever other content creators you want to go to, and then rinse and repeat. That is the best way. But setting yourself a target, I think, is really helpful. Saying, right, I'm gonna do this, and by the end of this month, I'm going to have spoken to 30 new girls, for example. and then keep a spreadsheet and make a record, and that will keep your mind focused, and it will encourage you to live up to the task that you've set yourself, if you like. Lots of chat with Davy and James and so on. Michael says cardio is key. I think that's true. I really like cardio, but I like cardio just because I like it. I like it more for the mental benefits of going for a nice long run, rather than anything else. But I was talking to John from Bulldog Mindset the last week, and he was saying, because he is ripped, right? I mean, he's like jacked. I mean, if you look at him, he's great, muscular, looks awesome, and he's doing 10-mile runs. He's doing 10, 20-mile runs. He's doing like whatever you call them, like super marathons and stuff like that. And we were discussing the whole thing about, can you run and make gains at the same time? Can you do cardio and make gains at the same time? And his view is, yes, absolutely, you can. Now, I'm not a fitness expert, so go to his channel to find out more about that. But yeah, I love a bit of cardio. I try to keep it more to the weight side of things, because I think resistance training is very important. But I do like to go running. I like to go for a long run. It really clears my head, and it raises your stamina as well, which I think is important. And the knock-on effect of that is during sex. HIT is great, perfect during lockdown for getting jacked. Exactly. Hip thrusts, that's a good tip. Right, James comes back and says, I think knowing all transactions are I think knowing all relationships are transactional leaves you jaded. I feel as I've turned into a robot with red pill awareness. I don't think an LTR can ever be the same. Well, okay, I get what you're saying, and there is another point here, actually. Sorry, I'm just checking something. Yes, the point coming out of that for me is yes, what is the end game? What is the answer for people in this space? Because if you know all of this stuff and you are therefore skeptical about long-term relationships, then what do you do? Do you just plow on anyway and get into a long-term relationship and just say, well, let the chips fall where they may, knowing the risks? Or do you say, well, look, I'm going to forego all of that, so I'm going to stay single, and I'm just going to date, date different people and whatever, and I'm going to, and everybody has to make their own decision on that for the model that's going to work for them. I mean, and this is perhaps one of the most fundamental questions that everybody has to answer in this for themselves in this space. And I know people on both sides of the divide. I know people who have said, well, okay, I think on balance, even though, I'm aware of some of this stuff, I'm actually going to get married and I'm going to start a family because that's just what I want to do. And, that's it. I also know people on the other side of the equation who said, sod it, not doing any of that. I'm just going to go out. I'm going to travel. I'm going to have a great time, and I'm going to date people along the way, and that's fine. That's what I want to do for my life. And everybody's got to make their own decision on this. So I think the main thing is trying not to be bitter about it, though, or trying not to be sort of down about it. And that because as I think it was John actually again from Bulldog Mindset was saying on the show the other week, last week. All disappointment really is founded in unmet expectations, and ultimately the answer is you shouldn't have had that expectation in the first place. So there's no point being bitter about the fact that relationships aren't as you kind of hoped they would be. And I'm speaking not just to James here, this is to all of us. I mean, a lot of guys become despondent and they get angry because they're sort of like, oh, but I was sold the Disney dream, and now it turns out that the Disney dream maybe isn't true. What am I gonna, what do I do? I'm really angry. But there's no point in being angry because that expectation was false in the first place. It was never going to be like that, okay? And so your unhappiness, your anxiety, your sadness, your frustration comes about because you had an expectation that was flawed in the first place, all right? So you have to find peace with that in some way. Not always easy, but we all need to do that. And then you have to decide which is the right path for you. And maybe the right path for you is saying, look, I've seen enough. I've seen how things work. I've seen behind the curtain, and yeah, no thanks. I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna get into anything serious. But you need to then think carefully. Okay, so how's that life gonna look? How am I gonna manage that in the longer term? And of course, we all get older and all that stuff. I don't buy into the whole lonely old man myth. I don't buy into the whole thing of like, marry somebody as an insurance policy in case you're lonely when you're 80. I don't think that's a good way to go. But yeah, nevertheless, we all need to think about these things. How is life going to look? How do we map this thing out? That is interesting. Running is good for making gains. YouTube guy called Pioneer. He has a great video on this. I will do. Thanks. That's awesome. Random donor. I'm going to buy your books. Thank you, sir. Renegade Dating Blueprint, collection of 11 of my books. Some of them quite short, but there's 11 books in there. It's just $39. The link is below. And also Renegade Dating Domination, which is a collection of all of my essays and writing for the last 5 years or so, is available now also. Again, the link is below. Did you have a red pill epiphany? What was it? Or have you always been a gorilla pimp? That's a kind of a John MLD kind of name, isn't it? Well, I mean, various things really. I was, for a start, my parents were divorced when I was younger, so that had a great effect on me because it's kind of hard to come out of a situation where you've seen a divorce and then you've seen your father remarry and you've seen that relationship start to turn sour as well. It's very hard to sort of grow up under those circumstances with a really Pollyanna-ish view of marriage and relationships because you've already seen how they can go wrong. You've already seen the pitfalls, even as a kid. So there was that. I think school is a pretty red-pilling experience for most people, really, because school is, classically, as they say, kids can often be cruel, and it became apparent to me pretty early on because I wasn't very good socially, and I certainly wasn't good with girls or anything like that when I was a kid, and so it becomes pretty apparent to you pretty quickly that the dating marketplace is not as it's sold to you in the movies and on soap operas and things. That's not how things go down. And it became apparent to me quite young, I'm talking like 15 and under, that this was kind of flawed. And then but nevertheless, you still persist because you've still got the societal programming, you still got the Disney stuff. I got into a relationship. Well, when I was in Manchester, I was with one girl for a short period of time, and then I got into a relationship with somebody else. And well, there was others in between, but I ended up with one girl, and I was with her for a few years. And that all went disastrously wrong. And so I think it was a sort of a process because you see enough of this stuff, and then I have to say, and then getting into doing a game, then you start to see more realities behind the curtain, and reading people like reading The Rational Male and things like this. I mean, and the internet has had such a profound effect on all of this because it's allowed people to share their experiences in a way that just wasn't possible before. Like 20 odd years ago, 25 years ago, people just didn't share their experiences in the way that we do. In a chat like this or via message boards as it used to be, or in Facebook groups and things like this. I mean, and so you're able to piece the dots together and see, hang on a minute, it's not just me that experiences this kind of stuff. This is actually a fairly common thing. And you start to see patterns. You start to see, okay, this is how things actually operate in the real world. So it was a process, I think, is the answer. But it started pretty young. Can you outline the steps from attraction to getting the girl? Yes, join Charisma and Dating Academy. It opens on Friday, the 7th of August, and it's open until Tuesday, the 11th of midnight. But no, I mean, well, broadly speaking, it's you go in and introduce yourself, you flirt, spike things up, create some attraction. When you reach the hook point, that is to say, when she indicates that she kind of likes you a little bit, maybe she asks you a question or she touches you or something like that, you tone it down a little bit, you start to be a little bit more normal, give her a little bit of comfort, and then you go for some kind of a close, which might be getting her telephone number or asking her on a date or whatever it is, taking her to another bar, whatever is appropriate in that circumstance. That is basically the process. That is the fundamental dance that takes place, and that's going to be broadly the same whether it takes 15 minutes or it happens over the course of a couple of weeks. That's how it is. But we go into this in much more detail in the course. Tips on creating a good dating app. Can you do a separate video on this? Yeah, I will. I tell you what I'll probably do, actually. I will probably get Myron Gaines to come on the channel again at some point in the future, because I mean, while I've used dating apps plenty. I've got some insights into things that have worked for me and so on and so forth. But Myron and obviously John MLD are real experts in the game. And so what I will do is I'll get them in and we'll talk more about it in depth with those guys, I think. By the way, within Charisma and Dating Academy, we will do a module in the live webinars. We will do a module that's dedicated to online dating apps, because it is really important, particularly at the moment, right? When nightclubs are closed down, the night scene is pretty much dormant. Obviously, you've got day game, but online dating apps are pretty important. So yeah, I will get into that in more detail going forward for sure. JD's asking a question about freezing before making an approach. I mean, look, to be honest, and this is honest, I'm not just saying this. To be honest, I generally don't freeze up these days, because I've just done so many of the damn things. Like for me, it's more a question of thinking, can I be bothered to do the approach, rather than deciding to do the approach and then freezing up. It's more like, oh, can I even be bothered to do this? I don't even, you get that more ennui kind of thing. But the thing is, I have done thousands and thousands of approaches. I reckon I've done probably about 10,000 approaches over the years. Now, I'm getting on a bit. I'm in my 40s, so that's not as as an incredibly high number as it sounds, but nevertheless, it's a lot. Oh, and I've done a lot of daytime approach. I've done a lot of things in nightclubs. I've been on loads and loads of dates. So I've done this stuff so much that I wouldn't say that my anxiety is completely eradicated, but I do think that it has. It's low enough that I don't get that real sort of freezing kind of like anxiety that perhaps I might have got as years ago as a beginner. That's just how it is. Will that ever change? Maybe. I mean, like, things in life come along, and I mean, if I didn't like the thing is as well, obviously I'm doing these videos all the time. I am quite social. I'm out and about meeting people, etc., etc., etc. So I'm quite sort of like lubricated, not in a weird way, but like I'm quite sort of socially lubricated. So I'm kind of all right at the moment. If I just went and locked myself in a room for a year and write a book, which I might do at some point, then I would probably be pretty rusty. Maybe I would freeze up, you know. But I think just sheer volume, it really it does so much. It just changes your wiring. It really does. I'm a very different person now to who I was when I was 18 years old. That is for sure. Right, Davy says, how to properly manage my time in regards of approach. Get a time per week and go only to approach, or do it on my day-to-day life. Like, up to you. It depends where you are in the process. If you are quite new to doing it, then it makes sense to block out some time and go out and do some longer sessions and get into the vibe. The good thing about doing a longer session is you get momentum. So first few approaches that you do may not be very good. And then you start to click into it. You start to get momentum and you start to get into state. And when that happens, it all starts to go better and you start to get real traction. So that's one thing to be said in favor of taking out some time and doing a longer session. However, doing stuff day to day, ultimately that's where you want to end up, really, because what you don't really want to be doing, I would say, is being, you know, doing this for 10 years and then still running around, you know, doing 3-hour sessions, you know, in the evening after work kind of thing. It's a time sink, and it's just not, you know, you want to be concentrating on other things. So ideally you want to get to the position where you are just doing it as part of your day-to-day life. You know, you go to the dry cleaners, there's a cute girl in the dry cleaners, you chat to her, get the phone number, whatever, move on, take her out the next week. You know, you go to a bar, there's a girl standing at you in the queue, get chatting with her, exchange details, take her out for a drink the next day, whatever, right? I mean, it should be just something that you just fit into your natural life, because it's part of your, it becomes part of your personality. It's just part of how you operate in the world, okay? So it sort of depends. I mean, if time is really of a concern, you could try doing one approach a day, which is the old thing that Roosh once advocated in a very good article, actually, where he said, do one approach a day. That will keep the wheels turning. It will mean that you're meeting lots of new people. I mean, you know, given that most men don't do any cold approaches in their entire life, or they maybe do 1 or 2 or something, doing one a day is incredible compared to the average guy. So, you know, so try that. And that is a very easy thing to do. It's a very low bar, but it will get you out and about, and it will get you, you know, and you know, you'll get some results over time. So try that. All right, listen, guys, I am going to cut it there because I am pretty tired. It's getting a little bit late now, and I've got something else to do just before I hit the sack. So thanks everybody for tuning in. As I said, Charisma and Dating Academy is opening on Friday, the 7th of August, and it's open until Tuesday, the 11th. So you've got 5 days to enroll in the program. After that, the door will clang shut. And when it reopens again later in the year, if we reopen later in the year, the price will go up. So right now is the best possible price you can get on the course. You've got the 10-hour worth of video tuition from me, but then you've also got the 10 live webinar sessions as well, where we'll be pulling in experts on all sorts of different things. You know, online dating, body language, fitness, you know, lots and lots of different subject matter. We'll get some people in, we'll get some cool speakers in, and we'll have a really good time. So if you want to be involved with that, then just watch this channel, right? Because I will, as soon as the cart opens, which will be on Friday, I will let you guys know. If you get on my email list, I will let you know earlier than that. So there's a link below here. You can join my email list now, and then you'll get all the information first. Yeah, and beyond that, yeah, I will do another one of these tomorrow. I'm not quite sure the time yet. Probably a similar sort of time, maybe earlier, depending on how things go tomorrow. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. If you've got more questions, please do come back. Bring some new questions, bring some new topics. We'll get into it all then. And it's great to see you guys. Thanks very much for tuning in. I'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.